Yeah, well, I don't do much. I used to be a cook. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. But now my son does. We're going down to the house. He's 4,000.
You know, I'm not sure.
It's called squirrel brain dressing.
For instance, fancy shirts.
Okay. But, so let me see. When I have it on the board. Oh, it's backwards. Can you reverse it? Don't worry about it. Good. I'm damn good with that. We just have to dial in now. We gotta dial in. Can you give me the dial in?
Any questions? Censor that. So I take C55. 749 4750. Yeah, you'll brush it. 2311 889 4041 pound. 484
all the way.
Right, because you're, just the tip. No end, no like, she technically.
That was.
He looks like he's on.
They only made one of those, that was back then.
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah.
So,
Hey, Steve, can you just let us know when you guys are gonna be ready to start?
We are, we're good to go, Chris. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock. Actually, I've got a minute or two after 6. And we have a quorum. 4 of the commissioners are present here, and a 5th is digitally connected to the meeting. So we have 100% attendance. And so with that in mind, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a joint meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and the Sewer Authority for the city of Norwich for Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. In order to effectively run the meeting online, I would like everyone to announce their name and title before speaking if they are joining us via WebEx. And with that, we will do the first thing on the agenda, which is the 15 minutes of public comment. If there's anyone, any member of the public out there who is joining us via WebEx, please speak up, and we will listen to what your comments are.
No additional on that?
No one? Nope. All right, I don't hear anyone, and I'm told that there's no electronic link from the public. So with that in mind, we will call the public comment period to close and move on to approval of the minutes. I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes of the last regular meeting of NPU and the Sewer Authority for the meeting of October 26th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion, Bob.
Bill Wazika, is there a second? Michael? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? I did not hear a Sean, but I'll assume that he voted for it. And so the minutes are approved.
Yep, I approve. I second it.
There you go. Thank you, John. The next item is information and updates provided to the board prior to tonight's meeting regarding the leadership team template and the financial update. Are there any questions for Chris or the staff on the materials that were provided in the board packet last week?
I have one question. Under the youth resources, right, there are a bunch of new job openings, right?
yep.
So how does that relate to, about a year ago when we did the incentive program and there were a bunch of, people that left? And
Yep.
how do these fit into that, or don't, or they don't?
Some of them are replacements of those people that we're bringing in now after we've had a time to evaluate, and they're all coming in at a lower level.
Okay, because that was my,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Bill, we actually have had 2 people announce their retirements for January 3rd. So we're continuing to see, some attrition after that program is done. So.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir.
I had a couple of questions for Eric. Under customer service, it was talking about the Panema Mill South, Phase 3 South Mill. It says that we're researching power availability. Is that going to be involved? Do we have?
Yeah, so what we're looking at right
now is there's a 4,800 service that comes in the back there.
Yep.
And we will likely be able to, buy that.
Okay, so we're researching what we're not.
not an if,
it's how.
Yeah, it's just a need.
Got it, all right, thank you, all right, hang on a sec. I had a question under, water. Under the DAF at Stony Brook, it said that there was a hydraulic issue. Is that a small issue, big issue?
That's been resolved, and we're in commissioning and getting the final details of the SCADA work done. Larry can provide a much more detailed update if you need to, but we did resolve the problem, and that we're now getting the right capacity out of the plant.
Okay, all right. All right, one more question, again for Eric, under electrical. For the new solar seal building going in, it says that a new distribution feeder into the business park is to be developed. Is that going to go all the way? Where's that coming from? Is it a big project, small project?
It's a small piece of a big project. We've had a plan to locate this part for a while, I believe it was the 70s that it was installed, so we started here pretty old.
Yeah.
The development for Wisconsin is having us pull that project a little forward, so we're going to be doing a piece of what we're going to do.
All right. Where's that power coming from? Is it?
So it's going to be coming from our regional substation, up Ferguson Ave, and then into the park alley.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's all I had.
And I had a quick question, financial question. And, to tell you the truth, I would have to look to see if I could find where it was in the financial report. I'll say it wasn't there, but what is our capital position right now? Capital reserve position right now for NPU, what is our objective?
So we don't have a capital reserve, a specific dollar amount that's set for capital reserve. In the fiscal year 2022 budget, we have the capital project identified in the planning statement as part of the year's budget project. As part of our long-term process with the rate consultant USS, we are working on an overall cash management policy that will help us identify capital reserves. We do have a capital plan, capital plan that we work on regularly, maintaining updates based on the businesses and infrastructure items that have been identified.
But I mean, typically we show having $35, $40, $45 million, somewhere in that vicinity as a reserve.
That's in our operating, on our financials. That money includes a lot of different pieces. So that is our day-to-day operating dollars. It also includes the capital tracker dollars. It also includes energy dollars.
Yep.
There's a calculation for that we worked on with Mark Beauchamp when he was here.
Yes.
We haven't turned that into a policy, but we're following the guidelines that he set forth when he came down.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that had me a little confused, because I believe he said, when he's the rate guy, when he was talking to us, he said that we needed to have a reserve of $35 million. And I think at other times we've shown a need for $40 or $45 million. And so I guess I'm just not sure.
It depends on which part of the number we're talking about.
Okay.
We're talking days cash on hand, how much we need to reinvest, our depreciation and replacement plan. So that overall cash management policy is going to speak to all of those pieces. So we'll have a central piece that drives all of that based on the recommendations and the cost of service study and all of the pieces that we put in place with the recent retrial.
But I mean, part of it is for rating agencies too. So I understand.
Correct, that plays into it as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that number may be different. Most likely, if it's Moody's, it's going to be higher than what Mark suggested as a base amount. So that's what it's going to be, a minimum. And obviously, you don't want to have $200 million in the bank, but there's going to,
I've had the pleasure of rating things with them, and they don't care about operations; they care about their borrowers.
it's interesting how different they are from.
Yeah.
But when you look at the fund balances of the department, right now we're just shy of 52 million cash, and there's probably about 8 million in capital reserve tracker money in that amount.
And we can revisit those calculations with you, and we can also compare and contrast that to what Moody's would require, if we get rated. And we do an annual internal report, comparing ourselves to the rating, methodologies that Moody's uses, and we've been tracking that over the last few years.
Yeah, I just don't, I know that we've got that situation, and then we've also got the situation where we're looking at doing the standby line of credit, which would be an additional reserve if you want to think of it that way.
Sure.
And, I mean, I just think it's an issue that we ought to kind of revisit to make sure we're acting at our most efficient level.
Probably a good time to do that, given the fact that we're going to be going out on RFP for the line of credit soon. Sort of all meshes together from a timing perspective.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And, you know, I think in some ways, this pandemic has been a lesson for us. I mean, this pandemic was not the end of the world by any means, but we did have some financial challenges, and we managed to maintain our reserve. It wasn't, we didn't have to spend down our reserve to the last dollar in order to keep operating. And so I think that does speak to the stability of it. All right, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I had one more question that I forgot. Under the Greenville Dam, it talked about that all the repairs were not made this summer. So is that going to hold together until next summer when we can do repairs?
Yeah, so we believe, because of all the rain that we had over the summer, we had a very, very small window to get a lot of repairs done. We sustained more damage than we have in past years. But we were able to get it to a place that we have a consultant that helps us with this, structural integrity of the dam. So we believe we've gotten into a place now where we will sustain through the winter, but we still have a large ton of work we need to do in the springtime.
All right.
And we also, in our meeting today with Congressman Courtney, found another opportunity to potentially get more funding to do the dam repair. So that's something we've got to dig in and take a look. But this is something from an area that we did not expect or didn't know of. So it was valuable that
And
way.
this is a piece of funding specifically set aside for publicly owned dams, which is something that I have not seen. So it's something we're definitely following.
We were looking at from the energy side, and we thought we could possibly get something from a stretch from the energy side. This is exactly what we need.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks.
Susan Lent from Aiken Gump has said multiple times to us, whether it was the NTU group talking to her or NCDC or whatever, that we all want to look at and try to maximize the money from the American Relief Funds and from the infrastructure fund and from the earmark program. But she always says to us, you know, there are annual allocations of funds and regular programs that you can tap to. It's not just these special things that are in the headlines. And so, I mean, I think that's probably what happened with the Greenville Dam, perhaps, I don't know. But it is something we need to do. We need to sort of think of regular funding as well as, you know, special funding.
We said that we're talking with Courtney's folks today, we said that this is sort of the right time to be going after it, but the more times we go through it, the better we'll get at it. And as you said, over and over and over, it's just a regular drumbeat. If we every year figure one or two things we're going to go after, we're not going to be successful all of that. But over time, this could be, if we're smart about it, I think each time we do these types of exercises, we're going to get better.
And, you know, it's, in some ways, it's like buying a lottery ticket, which is something I don't do, by the way. But lottery tickets don't cost much, just like applications for these things don't cost all that much. If you win, it's a big deal. Absolutely.
The odds are better than the lottery.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I would like to comment.
Yeah.
Reading over Laura's excellent report on the finances, we noticed that overall cash in the bank is over 53 million. Is that a correct number, Laura, for our division? I think that looks like an all-time high from my recollection.
It is, but partly, right now, we are holding over $4 million for our annual contribution to the pension. So it's a little higher than it would be otherwise, but right now, while we're in the process of the pension obligation line, the city has directed us to hold our contribution until we go through the process. And then once we go through the process, they'll have us provide that contribution to them in order to fund that reserve fund that's part of that pension obligation fund.
So it's kind of artificially
So
high.
it's artificially high.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting, I didn't know that. But I did notice that our receivables are coming down a little bit, we're collecting our back receivables.
We are seeing some activity there.
Yeah.
I will defer to the customer service team for discussion in regards to that, on how that's going, but we've gotten several different pots of money from the multiple funding sources that have stepped up with this whole
Is
pandemic.
some of that from government assistance programs for these people?
Yeah. TVCCA is still the big home run by far, well over $1 million from them. And as we go into the winter season, you're gonna see a urge go back up because of the winter moratorium and things like that on the residential side. But,
But it's been going in the right direction.
it's going in the right direction. That's not for lack of effort, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not easy right now, so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, I want to compliment everybody on that.
So, and you're also seeing very little arrearage in the commercials, and you're still seeing a large amount in the residential. Commercials have bounced back.
That's great.
So, Laura, you confused me though. I gotta tell you, I mean, the city passed this $48 million
The pension obligation.
pension obligation bond. The payments that any organization makes, including us, I presume, are current payments in order to take care of the pension obligations of people who are retired or looking to get check. And amortization funds to reduce the unpaid balance of the overall fund. The $4 million you mentioned, I mean, maybe that's the current obligations, I don't know.
That is what is the actuarial determined contribution for this fiscal year. Last year, we had made that contribution as a one-time payment in July of 2020.
Yeah.
This year, when I reached out to Josh to find out if he wanted that one-time payment again in July of 21, he asked us to hold it, because what they wanted to do was determine what the process would be for the pension obligation loan. Because prior to that, we hadn't had a referendum. Now that we've had a referendum, he's going to go through the process and go through that sale. Again, one of the other things is making sure that the numbers all work when we actually hit that point of the time. As long as that's good, then he's going to ask us to send the city that contribution.
So
And it doesn't
reading,
matter timing right now.
I'm sorry, reading between the lines, are you saying that $4 million includes some catch-up money as well as the current contribution?
So that is the amount the actuaries have determined is our contribution for this year, for fiscal year 2020.
Without any catch-up from prior arrears?
It includes all of that.
Oh, it does include that.
Yes.
No,
That's why
100%.
I told you, because if we get the pension obligation on, it's gonna take care of the arrears as part of that payment.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure how much our contribution to the reserve will be at this point. There's still a lot of calculations that have to go into play, and that's why John.
But it would be less probably, right?
I would anticipate so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, good. Thank you very much. All right, do we have any other questions? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the CMAQ update. Commissioner Deal.
Oh, thank you, Robert. All right, since our last meeting, the CMEC board met on October 28th and November 18th. At the October meeting, the board reviewed a compensation study performed by a consultant named In Tandem LLC. The goal of the study is to ensure CMEC staff are compensated in accordance with measurable metrics to optimize resources and costs. Job responsibilities are tabulated and ranked industry norms to allow proper placement within salary grades, with an idealized goal of achieving a so-called comparison ratio of 1.0, meaning that an employee is compensated at the industry norm. In Tandem reported CMEC's comparison ratio to be slightly below 1.0, allowing room for increase going forward. In Tandem also evaluated benefits compensation and determined the CMEC benefits to wage ratio to be 60%, which places it at the 50th percentile among industry peers, or right in the middle of the pack. CMEC also reported that recent changes in personnel have resulted in compensation savings of $1.4 million per year, with a good portion coming from the elimination of the sustainability director position and the CFO position. They're probably two of the highest paid positions they had there. The master dashboard for September and October showed most arrows pointing downward, with a projected total end-of-year member return to be 14% below budget. On the energy side, the September hedge position was reported at $38.55 cents per megawatt hour compared to the LMP price of $48.30. And then October, the hedge position was roughly the same at $38.39 compared to the LMP, which jumped up to $58.20. And as we discussed last month, the forward market energy costs are still predicted to peak in February at $145 per megawatt hour, or almost triple the current LMP. The November meeting is the annual meeting where, amongst other things, the meeting dates and committee rosters are approved. Continuing from last year, Chris LaRose is the chair of the Budget Committee with Bob Staley serving. Myself is the chair of the Audit Committee with Bob Staley serving. Bob Staley is the chair of the Risk Management Committee with Chris LaRose serving. And our own Chris Riley will serve as a non-board member of the Legislative and Government Affairs Committee. Congratulations, Chris. The officers remain unchanged from last year with Chris LaRose treasurer. At the November meeting, the Budget and Finance Committee reported out the 2022 budget with a favorable recommendation to the full board, and the budget was approved. That's all I had.
All right, great, thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Field? Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is the Finance and Audit Subcommittee update. That is a standard entry into our agenda. However, Finance and Audit, the subcommittee met a little bit before last month's meeting, and we talked about their situation then. So there's really no update.
Meeting next week, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Michelle?
No, next week is economic development.
Oh, okay.
That's the other meeting.
They keep getting all the meetings, we can't get that, I'm just kidding. I'm not upset. But I will say that the three main topics that I recall that we covered, was now a while ago, was the pension obligation bond process, which, you know, we seem to be in favor of, and now it's in the sausage machine getting made, I guess, with the city hall and the powers that be. And we discussed the line of credit, which everybody seems to be in favor of at the board level. And then we went over what the pending rate increases were going to look like. And that was covered pretty much in detail at the last meeting too.
We'll have an update on energy costs shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, great.
Thank you.
So, since there's no real update other than what we heard last month on this committee meeting, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the 2022-23 budget schedule.
Yeah. Laura will give us a brief update, you know, and this is for everyone to see who was not attending that meeting, so.
So here is a summary outline of the activities over the next several months as we go through the fiscal 23 budget preparation process. So as we have done in the last several years, we will start with the Finance and Audit Committee, reviewing the budget drivers, the different divisions and views, gas, electric, water, sewer, and the administrative areas. We'll go over in detail the drivers behind each of their divisional budget areas. The first week of March, we'll distribute the draft budget for the board to review. Second week of March, it will go to the city to be included in the draft budget for the entire city. We'll do a detailed presentation to the board of the actual budget, all the dollars, on the March 22nd meeting. Sometime in the beginning of April, usually the first week, Chris will present the NPU budget to the city council. In either April or May, we will go to the board to vote and approve the NPU budget. Subsequent to that, beginning of June, it will be submitted to the city as a final approved budget to be included in the city overall budget that the city council will vote on, generally the first week of June. Any questions?
Just so I remember correctly, our 10% contribution to the city is based on the prior completed fiscal year.
So the contribution in 23 will be based on fiscal year 21 revenue.
Yeah.
So we're going to feel the beginnings of COVID, unfortunately, in this one.
Yeah.
When we put our budget together this year, the business is back and high commodity costs, it's gonna be a bonus year when this one comes to fruition.
The June 30, 22 year. It's gonna be bonus.
All right, this is just a schedule, I mean, if anyone has any comments, please make them, but, the schedule is the schedule, and looks fine to me. The next item on the agenda is the Smart Energy Provider Award. Chris?
All right, we, recently at the, APPA Customer Connections, conference, were, presented the Smart Energy Provider. Here's the plaque, and the only thing wrong with this plaque is it's got the wrong dates on it. The correct dates, plaque will be coming, if everyone takes a look at that. It's, Smart Energy Provider Program is a national designation, given by APPA. And, utilities like ours need to apply for this designation, and an expert panel reviews the applications and ensures that we meet the criteria. This is the third year that they provided this, and this is a relatively new award. And this year, there were just about 90 of all of the thousands of public power communities that received this. So we're one of 90, which is pretty darn good. It recognized the utility's commitment to and proficiency in energy efficiency, distributed generation, renewable energy, and environmental initiatives. So looking at pretty much our whole efficiency package and rating it nationally how we're doing. It's not a rubber stamp program. Applicants are screened. It's a thorough application, and something that our efficiency team is proud. You know, we're proud of our efficiency team and to get this award.
Does it give us any kind of stature in terms of grants potentially, or things like that? You know, does it, can it be built into the grant application?
No, it doesn't. No. You know, it's something that if we are going for a green project or something else, in the narrative, we would put that in there. It doesn't hurt, Mike, but there's no, you know, there's no checkbox for extra points on that.
Well, window dressing is important too.
Absolutely, yes. And when we talk about, you know, the APPA RP3 award, our SOAR award for gas, these are the types of things that we talk about in the city narrative, and we talk about when we're trying to sell.
It's important for our image too.
Absolutely. And it's likely that we will be looking at some interest, you know, to improve our smart energy provider, we want to put a 34.5 ring around the city so we can put more distributed generation. Once again, that enhances this.
I have a question, Chris.
Congratulations.
I have a friend that put up a solar panel, but he's leasing it from one of those companies, you know, Sunshine America or something like that. He swears he's getting net metering. And I don't think anyone's offering net metering anymore.
Eversource still is, and it's going away. The munis are providing LMP.
LMP, okay, but that is going away?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to burst his bubble, and I wasn't sure if I was correct, but I'm pretty sure I remember that I knew we weren't doing it, and if we're not doing it, I couldn't imagine anybody else doing it.
So Eversource, they have a broader customer base, essentially subsidized for a while. The problem is it's becoming too prevalent, and now they're losing a significant amount of money. So they went to move to eliminate that, go to a model like we have. Obviously, that met with customer resistance, right, and not being in alignment with, you know, green energy and all this sort of stuff. So they're going to take another run at it. And what I say to, I have several friends who've done as well. If you get grandfathered in, which is likely going to be the case, they'll be net metered for the duration, so they won't lose money on their system.
Really?
That's not a guarantee, but it's a probability. If they don't get net metered in,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
they're going to lose a lot of money over the next 20 years.
Now, and it depends on what your contract looks like, who takes that loss if net metering goes away.
Correct.
It could be the solar provider, and it could be the customer, depending on how the fine print is in the.
He has a PPA with his solar provider, kind of a thing. I think that's the way, I'm not sure if he gets an Eversource bill anymore.
No.
I'm not sure.
Probably not.
He's out in Montville.
So for those we non-engineers, what's the distinction we're talking about?
So net metering means that all the solar that you don't use, they'll pay you retail rates for.
Okay.
And we're not doing that. Now, they did it a long time ago for the same reason, that there's like 27 customers, and they could afford to do it. It was a goodwill gesture kind of thing, but when there's 1,000 customers, they can't do it anymore.
And they used to require that the utility bought it at their highest replacement cost. I don't know if that's still the case or not, but.
Sure.
No, I mean, it's tariff.
Yeah.
Basic rates, you have your distribution expenses, then you have your energy expenses. So now by compensating someone for energy you buy back and redistribute at the retail rate, you're actually doubling your loss, right? Because you're not collecting, you still have line traffic.
You're not collecting the distribution.
Exactly, and then you're crediting it the same amount again, so you're basically doubling your loss on those customers, and everybody else pays. That's the inequity.
So when this all gets sorted out in a couple of years, whenever it is, will there be pressure on us to match whatever Eversource is doing, or do you think they're gonna wind up?
They're going to be our model.
Okay, so they're gonna wind up where we are.
But, you know, places like, you know, out in Arizona, where they have a lot of solar, and a lot of places like, they're already on. That's where the country's going.
Okay, thanks.
That's sort of a classic situation where, on the one hand, green power is considered a good thing and fighting climate change and all of that sort of thing. But an awful lot of the climate change initiatives essentially subsidize the rich or middle income and charge the poor. And that's effectively what's happening here. I mean,
Yeah, if you have the money to take advantage of it, you're getting the benefit, and it's being paid for by the guys they're getting paid half.
Someday I rent a 3-room apartment.
Right, yeah, he has a quarter of your net worth that he's paying for, right, exactly.
You'd much rather put a system on top of a large corporate group, or than to put it on a million little individual houses. It's just an economy of scale.
So, not to belabor the point, but when the cost of a at-home battery comes down, then your rooftop solar makes sense. But you gotta have, I'm calculating at least 80 megawatt hours of battery to run your house for a day. And you might have to run your house for 2 or 3 days, you know, if you get a big blizzard or something like that. So that's a lot of battery, and that's gonna be expensive. So that's a ways off.
And that's, I mean, the truth about batteries is they don't last that long. You know, 2 or 3 days is maybe the maximum.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah, if you figure out what it takes to run your house, especially in the summertime, if you're running your air conditioning and all that, a good-sized battery won't last the whole day.
You know, that may not be the case in Norwich where we have a tremendous service, but, I mean, if you look at Storm Sandy and a few other things like that, people who had batteries, were a little better off for 2 or 3 days, but, then they were all at the same time.
You gotta have a battery and a backup generator. And he also put in geothermal, and he's an engineer, he knows this, but I had to say to him, I says, okay, if you have a furnace and you lose power, you can run your furnace with a small generator. You can't run geothermal with a small generator. I can't, no, you can't. So it's okay in the summer, you can live without, air conditioning, but not the winter.
All right, great. The next issue on the agenda is strategic presentations. We have 2 strategic presentations this evening. Energy cost, supply update, and infrastructure project overview.
All right. So, Steve's going to provide us a brief energy cost update. We went into great detail in the last Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and we can go into detail if anybody has additional questions as we go, but we're going to try to keep this at a high level for tonight's meeting.
Okay, everyone have a presentation? Okay, get right into it. First slide, factors impacting, sorry, I just see that, fueling Keystone application, I never saw that before. Factors impacting energy costs. I went through all this in detail before. You know, pipeline reservation charges, there's a rate case that we're going through right now, so we've included that in there. NYMEX futures, they're up 64% for the fiscal year. And the Algonquin Citygate pricing, which is another market up here in New England, that's up 116% from last year. LNG markets are up over 100% right now, so on and so forth. That has an impact on the electric markets as well to a huge degree. And, you know, if you look at the electric markets, they're blaming a lot of this on the same thing. In addition, storage levels, for natural gas are below the 5-year average, so on and so forth. The cost of oil is up, and oil is also used, to generate electricity. And as a result, you know, generation costs are up 20% and transmission costs are up 3%. And then the other factor here is the weather predictions and how that influences market behavior, both from a near-term supply and demand factor, but also market speculation. Some forecasts predicting a colder than normal winter, so that's going to increase people, procuring futures for the winter time period, hoping that they're going to make out. Next slide. Again, just updating the slide that we've been showing, and we're looking back to April because that's when we started seeing all these increases for the year. If it's for purchased gas, we're hovering right around $9.2 million for the forecast for the year. That's 40% above where we thought we would be back in April. It was $2.6 million in additional costs. Interestingly enough, this forecast is $791 lower than it was last month. So it appears that maybe markets have stabilized. They're still elevated, but maybe they have stabilized. But obviously, 1 month doesn't show a trend. But it's good that it's not another $1 million this month, because that's what we were seeing. With regard to electric, we rolled in the most recent CMEC forecast for electric expense comparison. So for the fiscal year, we're up $3 million over where we thought we would be in April. But once again, if we look at the number, the $26,670,000, we're within $29,000 of our forecast from last month. So once again, have the markets stabilized somewhat? We're not sure, but they are quite high right now, so I'm hoping that they are. And this is, basically up 13.4% for the fiscal year since April. I'm going to show a couple more charts here that we haven't shown before. I like charts sometimes more than tables. This is just showing the trend, and you can see in the winter months, we call it this natural gas, so the November through March, March winter time frame, that's when all the demand is up here in the Northeast. That's where you're going to see your huge impact, and you can see the impact that it has on our gas costs. That's the light blue bars compared to the orange bars on a monthly discrete basis. That's our increased natural gas costs for those particular months. So next slide, same thing for electric. Once again, you're also going to see the impact in the winter months. And historically, I'm not sure why this happens, but you don't start seeing that peak until later you don't see it necessarily in November because the cold weather's not there yet, but December, January, February, that's when you're really going to see the spikes in electric. So last slide in summary, energy costs continue to be elevated. Have they stabilized? We'll see. We'll see next month and the month after that. Once the real cold weather gets here, which we had some experience of that today, that may tell us where we stand. The PPA and PGA, as of right now that we set in November, it's going to continue to recover costs as planned if things start to stabilize now. So that's a good sign. But again, we're going to continue to analyze this on a monthly basis throughout the winter. Now, just one additional thing that I don't have on a slide here, but as an added note, we did say at the last meeting that we're going to be tracking whether Eversource makes any changes for the winter once we made the PPA and PGA change. And we anticipate that Eversource is going to make a significant increase to their generation service charge for the January to June period. Not only did they do that, but on October 1st, they announced a 1.5% increase to their base rates on an average residential bill. So we rolled that into all of our comparisons that we've talked about in the past. And they've increased, as of January 1st, their generation service charge is going to increase from 7 cents to 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour through June. So for every kilowatt hour someone uses, this residential customer, it's a 64% increase in their energy costs. That's extremely significant.
That's just energy without distribution.
That's just the energy. And why is that so different from CMEC? It's the difference in the way Eversource is required to buy their energy and the way CMEC is able to buy their energy with their hedging programs and so on and so forth to keep costs down as low as possible. As stable, but as low as possible. Where Eversource is forced to sort of go into the market 2 times a year, and it's a bad time to be in the market with gas costs going up. So that's where we are, and of course we're even a more favorable position compared to Eversource than we thought we would be a month ago. But we knew that they were going to go up, but this is actually a lot higher than I thought they would go up. 64%.
Steve,
Mm-hmm.
you said 64%?
Yes.
And what component of the bill is that?
It's on a Eversource bill. They break out their energy costs completely from the bill because you're allowed to go to another supplier and all that. So it's all generation. So the generation cost, it's not delivery through the distribution system or anything like that. It's just the generation costs that they're recovering from the.
What percent of their bill is the generation cost?
Well, based on my bill, most recently it's probably been 30 to 40%.
So if it was 30%, the low end, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes up 64%,
Mm-hmm. They'll be up over 50.
so that'd be raising it over 15%
Mm-hmm.
on a total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50, yeah. I was thinking it would be around 55% of the bill would be the generation cost.
It'd be around 55% of the
Total, yeah.
You just said 30 to 40% before,
Yeah.
but it's 55%.
No, I'm saying is after this rate gets put into place, it'll probably be, the generation cost will probably be 50 to 60% of your bill, of a Eversource
So the
bill.
increase is going to be around 15 to 16%
Mm-hmm.
of the total bill.
Yeah.
Based on the numbers you said. That's a lot less than our increase, right? We're at 6.5% electric. Total bill increase.
Remember what the number was?
So,
I think it was in there. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was 6%.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry, I have a lot of numbers floating in my head.
I remember that number.
So for electric, we were 20% below typically Eversource, if I remember correctly.
We were in recent times,
Yeah.
before COVID, yeah, and through COVID, yes. When we implemented the changes November 1st, it dropped to around 6%. We're probably up back around 12 to 13% lower at this point.
Okay.
With these changes, effective January 1st. And, they're going to be stuck to that bill through June when the air conditioning starts coming on.
It's a lot, 12 to 13%.
Yes, sir.
Steve, if you don't mind me asking, which weather prediction forecast models do we use?
Farmers Donald, no.
Honestly, I was gonna say that, but I didn't wanna be like one to ask, but
That's not a
I had to
bad
ask
predictor.
though,
No, it's
really,
not a bad-
honestly.
It's not a bad predictor, actually. It's because there's weather people behind that, there's science behind the
Sure.
almanac. But we actually pay for a service
Oh, okay.
that we use that not only gets updated every day. I think it gets updated 3 times out for a month by day, and I think out for 2 weeks by hour. And it's always changing. So we get our weather forecast by the hour in the wintertime, especially. But as far as long range stuff like this, they don't really produce that because we deal with scientists, not predictors, from a perspective of
Sure.
wanting to fuel the market.
How far off are they though?
It all depends. If I had a crystal ball, I probably wouldn't be here, but.
None of us will be, I think.
But
Yeah,
that weather service, what it really does, is that gives us degree days and
Yes.
allows us to purchase gas in advance at the right amounts and the right
Sure.
quantities. And you
Understood.
get that hourly forecast.
Yep.
You also know when we have, for instance, run the LNG plant.
Sure.
So it's critical for our team that does our gas buying
Right.
to use that weather forecast.
Understood.
And longer out, the less reliable it is.
Of course.
They're, short term, they're very accurate.
Right.
Okay.
And what we do is we always plan for a normal winter regardless.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And like I said, we'll look a month out, and about a week before the end of the month is when we have to buy all of our gas, about a week before for the whole next month.
Yeah.
So we need that weather forecast in order to
Understand.
do that.
Gotcha.
But we're not in the market to see if we can, make a lot of money in February.
Gotcha.
So
So
do
we
we
don't-
do hedging internally the way CMEC does hedging for, all of the electric groups?
We used to long ago. We would use a lot of different financial instruments to do things, and
Yep.
it worked pretty well, but it's not easy to do that now unless you have, a seat, or you're dealing with someone who has a seat on NYMEX or something, because, and our gas supplier is a gas supplier. They probably have a seat on NYMEX, but, we're not really in a position to do that, necessarily.
And we did, one time, I think we were with MGAG, we did have some issues with some of that.
We did. If we go back to the 2004 timeframe, there was a trade that went upside down, and it wasn't our fault. It was because someone didn't do the job on the other side, and it wasn't a good situation.
Not guaranteed.
Not a guarantee. It cost us a lot of money at the time, but it wasn't money out of pocket. It was lost opportunity more than anything. And, when we were hedging, not gonna guarantee you the least cost. It's gonna guarantee a stable cost, right? Not the highest, not the lowest, but somewhere in between, and you set your PGA for that, and you ride out the winter.
So, I like simple things. Tell me after the Eversource increase, and I presume their gas company increased too.
It did.
Where do we stand on average versus Eversource as of January 1st?
For electric or gas?
For both? Well, for each.
Yeah, I'd say for electric, like I said, it's around 12% lower.
Okay.
And on gas, at this point, we don't know what their PGA is gonna be in December or January. So I'd be, speculating as to what that would be in order, but we're within 5% on a residential customer right now. We're not gonna change our PGA at all. I expect as we get into the winter months, they're gonna continue to increase their PGA. They're up 23% for the year just on their PGA right now. But they change it every month. They have a different way of doing things.
So are we 5% higher or lower?
We're high. We're slightly higher right now.
We're building slightly more for gas than they are.
Mhm.
Yeah. But we're stable, and they're likely to go up.
Okay?
Yeah,
But we're under them on electricity, we're a little over on gas.
correct. And everyone's an electric customer in Norwich, so that's extremely important.
Pardon?
Everyone is an electric customer in Norwich, so that's extremely important that we are very, competitive on electric.
Right, thank you.
All right, great. If there are any other questions on energy costs and supply, please speak up. And if not, we'll move on to the next item, which is infrastructure project overview.
I have one other question.
Sure.
Is there gonna be a supply chain issue with regard to getting gas?
There should not be a supply chain issue with regard to getting gas. I don't expect there to be. I haven't seen anything in that regard.
Is closing the XL pipeline, but that's oil that goes through that pipeline to the
Yeah.
refineries down in Louisiana?
And export, yeah,
And that was for export.
for export,
That was for export, too.
Okay.
mainly for export.
Both export and domestic, right?
No, mainly for export. Because there was no way to get the oil out of Canada going through the North Pole. So the easiest thing was to build a pipeline through Canada, down through the United States, through the Gulf, where the ships could.
So the XL pipeline product only goes for export, it doesn't go for domestic?
That was my understanding, yeah.
I never heard that. I'm not saying you're wrong, I just never heard that before.
I thought it was,
No.
yeah, I thought it was tar sands that they elevated the temperature to get it to flow, They sent it down to Louisiana for refining. And then
They
it was
sent it to
exported.
Louisiana for refining and then,
So it wasn't even oil going through the pipeline, it was just heavy crude.
oh, it's crude, it's crude, yeah, it's crude, it's not, it's not,
Then it went to Louisiana for refining, but I'm pretty sure it was for export.
it's for export.
Going through that pipeline, the cost of moving it is much cheaper than trucking it when going by rail. Plus, it's not pollution, right?
And it's being trucked and brought by rail now.
Right.
Mhm.
But before, it was going that way, it was kind of cheaper. I don't know how much cheaper, but I would think it would have been a lot cheaper. You're not burning gas and.
Well, there is energy that's required to pump oil through a pipe.
Right,
It takes a lot of energy.
We're not
You know,
experts on that, but,
yeah.
when you look at the number of compressor stations from the natural gas field all the way to the end point, there's a lot of energy all along the way that takes to, compress and transport that natural gas.
Yeah, every 100 miles, there's huge stations that boost the pressure.
So you don't know if that's less or more than trucking or train?
No,
Okay.
couldn't speculate on that.
Thought they had to heat it, take it at the flow, but I could be wrong.
But it's using electric versus hydrocarbon directly, at least.
It depends. I mean, they could have, I don't know what they use. I know in the natural gas industry, they'll use natural gas to fire turbines to compress the natural gas, or they'll use electric motors. So it's a mix.
And there's a move to go more electric motors just to
Correct.
lower their carbon footprint, right?
Yeah.
They're transporting carbon, but they want to have a lower carbon footprint.
Why not?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions on this subject, or can we move on? Hearing none, we'll move on to infrastructure project overview, Chris.
All right, Steve, can you pull up the spreadsheet?
Yep.
And what we have done is we have taken and created two separate spreadsheets. We'll talk about one here, and we'll talk about the other one in the Economic Development Committee update, an exec session. But what we have done is we separated, pure infrastructure with economic development. And so these are the projects that we're talking about for infrastructure. And I think everyone's seen these before, and I'm happy to go through each and every one of these items. I thought we'd go more in detail in the economic development ones later. But there's every one of these is critical. They're all in our 5-year and 10-year and 20-year capital project plans, and we're going to do these, and we will have the ability on many of these to expedite them and get a higher percentage of grant funding. So that's kind of where we are on these projects. Does anybody have any questions specifically on these?
I'm sorry, on the projects?
Yeah, on the first page, the 10 projects.
Okay, first one, yeah.
Right here.
Well, I hate to bring this up again, but we're listing the Greenville Dam as $1.5 million. That's for a major upgrade. That's not for yearly maintenance or next year's maintenance.
It's normally 100 to 150,000 that we've been doing.
We kind of buttoned it up for this year. Next year we'll do another maintenance as needed, but you are planning a $1.5 million major upgrade? Is that what this is saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so this would be really getting into the structure of the dam, so what we're looking at.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask about that. So that's a wooden reinforced earthen dam, is that the way it works?
Yeah, so it's timber grid dam, so essentially what you have is a bunch of wood holding in a bunch of stone.
Okay, well, that's it, right. So is the $1.5 million, is that gonna put in a concrete dam or something?
No, unfortunately, based on the riverbed there, concrete wouldn't work. It was looked at least my understanding, many years ago.
I was involved in that, yeah, and we did look at it.
And based on, unfortunately, the riverbed, that's not something we can support. So the type of dam we have there is essentially the only type of dam we can have. So what this is doing is going in and replacing some of the lowest timbers within the dam that actually piece both the front and the back of the dam together. And that's where that's a substantial rebuild. It's ripping out a good portion of that dam.
Sort of do it in halves and redirect kind of around it? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna obviously use an engineering firm, people much smarter than me, to come up with that plan. But yeah, it would be a lot of diverting water and setting up coffer dams to big sections of dams.
That's the long-term goal, but that doesn't have to happen next year unless we,
No, it doesn't have to happen next year. It does have to happen in the near future just because of the current conditions, but if this is not something that we fund next year, then we would go through the normal $150,000 that we typically spend.
right, okay.
If that dam gave out, what would happen?
Yeah,
So that is considered I'm trying to remember the term, but it's a lower danger dam. So essentially, if that dam were to give out, we're not going to flood downtown Norwich. So I can't remember what the exact spread is, but the impact would be minimal. The impact on the city infrastructure would be minimal. The impact on our ability to run our hydros would be catastrophic.
What about Panema Mills complex, would that be affected?
No, so Panema's upstream.
Oh, it's upstream.
And that's actually right behind the tap.
Oh, okay.
So essentially, the further upstream you go, the more impact a dam collapse would have.
Right.
In Mansfield, it's, you know, the worst, it's a big flood control dam,
Yeah.
and then you work your way down, yeah.
Where's this,
But we're kind of, where it gets wide and it's the big end of the funnel, right?
Yeah.
When you have a problem on the narrow end of the funnel, that's where you have a major catastrophic event.
you can't really,
Panema has a
Winter,
dam
you know where it
that generates power,
You go-
but privately owned.
It's owned by First Light,
okay, halfway.
and,
You know that road that goes across, goes, I'm gonna back up, what's that called? That road,
that's the road that goes.
met with them over the summer, they did not want to sell it, but we have heard that there's potentially a change of hands there, we haven't got any details. But they, have no interest in selling it to us,
Yeah.
they weren't interested in selling us
That's where-
purchase power agreements for the
One
power they
megawatt,
generate
a generator.
Oh, okay.
Scotland Dam is owned by First Light Oklahoma?
as well. They own Tunnel, Scotland, and Tassel, the three in that area.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions about the infrastructure? Hearing none, the next item is for us to go into executive session, potentially to discuss confidential, trade secret, and commercially valuable confidential or proprietary information not subject for inspection or public disclosure pursuant to section 1, 210(5) and 7, 232A of the Connecticut General Statutes. This information is commercially valuable, confidential, proprietary, and is not public for public disclosure pursuant to Public Act number 98-212. And it's also to discuss personnel matters of an employee or employees and/or public official pursuant to Chapter 14, Section 1206A of the Connecticut General Statutes. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
I'll second.
Bill? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. We're in executive session.
Right, Bob, I'd like for the senior team to stay.
Yeah.
Laura is gonna stay, Chris is gonna stay, and Hugh Murray, our labor attorney, will be staying. And as we move down the agenda, we'll be pairing people off to go home.
Okay.
I'll be first.
It's always good to get it on.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Have a good trip.
Where you headed, Mike? Where you headed?
Right.
All right, appreciate you. All right, great.
Thank you.
See how you're.
Afternoon.
Okay.
Are you ready? Are you out?
Yes.
I don't see the video work, but,
We got audio?
Sean, where do you teach?
Eastern Connecticut. Yeah. Teach 2 classes this semester. Principles of management, principles of marketing.
Very impressive.
Okay, thank you.
it's picking up the audio, but I don't know what's not picking up the video.
Okay.
All right, so audio will be enough.
Might be a
Yeah.
Audio
All right,
only.
so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Keel? Sean, thank you.
Second.
We have the first and the second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it's unanimous, we're out of session.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
guys.
enjoy your.
Have a good, thank